This week on Big Red's Cooking, we make cinnamon rolls. Hi, and welcome back to Big Red's Cooking. As always, I'm Big Red. So today is a real special video for me. You know, as you guys know, I've been calling these videos Big Red's Cooking, Big Red's Video. The very first thing I ever used the Big Red name for was to make cinnamon buns. Back in 2010, which seems forever ago now, I was working and living in St. John's. My favorite coffee shop at the time didn't have cinnamon buns. They couldn't find a decent cinnamon bun that they wanted to sell. I love cinnamon rolls, cinnamon buns. So I said, hey, if I can make them, will you buy them? And so will you bring us a sample? We'll check it out. And if we like them, we'll buy them. And that turned into my first little baking foray. And I've sort of been chipping away at it ever since. So this goes right back to my roots in terms of a baker and doing some home-based cooking projects. I've taught people how to make these through the years, and they're always a success. It's a relatively simple recipe again, and I have no doubt any of you guys can make these. So I'm not going to stand here and yak away all day. You know what? Let's go on over to that workbench. We'll pick up over there. All right, so to get started, we'll get going with our dough. We're going to get our dough made, and we'll let it rest for a while, rise, things like that when we're rolled out. So we're just going to take this step by step. Now you're going to notice as well, as I go through this today, I'm measuring everything by weight, and all my measurements that I'm going to talk about in this video, I'll be using weights for them. Now, if you don't have a scale, go buy one. If you don't have a scale, however, though, and you haven't had a chance to buy one yet, I will have the recipe posted on my website, bigredscooking.ca, and down below in the video description with them in weights as well, or a pretty close approximation onto it. With volume, so you can use it, you know, measuring cups and things like that. But personally, I prefer weights, and you're going to watch me in action here, and you'll see how nice it is to be able to use scales and things like that. So I'm actually going to start with my milk, and what I'm going to want to be able to do is just to pop this in the microwave for a few moments to be able to take the chill off it. So we need a half liter, 500 mils, and you're probably trying to figure out how I'm using mils or milliliters on a scale. One of the nice things about milk, just a little too much there, is that milk, water, and eggs we can actually measure accurately on scales, so we know 1 gram is 1 milliliter. Alright, so I'm just going to go ahead and pop this in the microwave for about 45 seconds. I don't want it super hot. Basically, we're looking for a nice sort of warm, but not extremely hot milk. So in the meantime, what I'll do is I'll start measuring off some of my other ingredients here. So we got 850 grams of flour. And see, one of the things I love about using a scale, now I've got my 850 grams in there, I can just go ahead and hit the 0 button on my scale. As far as the scale is concerned, there's nothing there. And now I can very easily measure my 120 grams of sugar down into it. Perfect. And then our next ingredient is instant yeast. Now, instant yeast and active dry yeast are two very different products. I'm going to guess most of you watching, a lot of you are watching anyhow, are probably used to using the active dry, which tends to come in the little sort of foil packs and whatnot. That you have to bloom out, you have to add to warm liquid, let it sit for about 10 minutes until it gets nice and frothy. This doesn't. This gets directly mixed in with the yeast, and we don't use the same amounts as well. So if you do have active dry, what you can do is you can take it and pop it into your warm milk for about 10 minutes before you go making this. And you're going to actually have to use about 1.5 times as much yeast as what I'm using. So, like I said, I got instant yeast. You can buy this at the grocery store. This stuff lasts forever. I bought this thing of this quick rise instant yeast, I think about 3 or 4 years ago. And as long as I've kept it in my fridge, it's stayed good for me. So we'll get our milk out of our microwave. Let me just check it, see. Yeah, that's not quite warm enough yet. So I can go ahead and put this on for another 45 seconds. And in the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and weigh up. How much yeast do I need there? I need 45 grams of yeast. There we go. And our last dry ingredient is some salt. And I need, how much of that? 20 grams of salt. That's warm. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I want to make sure all my dry ingredients are well mixed. So I'm just going to get this sort of a little sift together here before I add all my liquid ingredients down into it. And now we need 80 grams of vegetable oil. That's our last 2 ingredients. And a couple of eggs. And again, it's always important when you're opening eggs, don't go hitting it on a sharp edge, hit it on a flat edge. We want to avoid pushing the eggs in, and what you'll notice is I sort of try and pull my egg apart. The riskiest part from a food poisoning perspective for eggs, it's not actually the egg itself, it's the shell. And then I'm just go ahead and add my milk. Go ahead and we'll pop this onto our stand mixer here. Now if you don't have a mixer like this, that's okay. Go ahead and mix it by hand. I'm just going to go ahead and give this a quick scrape along the sides. So we're getting all that flour incorporated in. Alright, so this dough is looking just a little too wet for me. And that's okay. These things happen sometimes. Weather can have a big impact onto our flour and stuff like that. So I'm just going to go ahead and add a small bit more flour. Alright, so I got a nice wet sticky dough. What I'm going to do now is I'm just going to sprinkle a little flour down onto my counter here. And I'm going to go ahead and turn this out onto this counter, and we'll shape this into a dough ball. I'm going to place it into a nice greased and oiled bowl, and we'll let the yeast do its thing. There we go, just a little oil into the bottom of our bowl. What I tend to do is use the dough to make sure everything is all nice and greased. So we'll go ahead and we'll wrap that up. And what we want is basically for this to about double in size, which should take about an hour to an hour and a half, depending on how warm it is. Alright, so we'll see you guys once this is doubled up in size. Alright, so our dough is all nice and risen here now. So we're just going to put that to the side for a few moments. We're going to get our cinnamon and our brown sugar ready to go, and we're going to soften up some butter. So I'm going to go ahead and pop a bit of butter in the microwave just to soften up. So you're going to need about 60 grams of butter. Oh, perfect. So I tend not to put my butter in for very long. It softens up really, really quickly. And I'm not looking for liquid butter. I'm just wanting butter that's sort of soft so I can spread it relatively easily. Alright, we can see our butter nice and soft there now. So for our brown sugar and our cinnamon, what we're going to do is we're going to use about 175 grams of brown sugar. And to that, I'm going to add 30 grams of cinnamon. So I'm just going to take this and just going to give it a good mix together. Make sure there's no lumps of brown sugar. So there we go. We've got our brown sugar and our cinnamon all put together. Let's actually get some cinnamon buns made here now. A little flour on my cutting board, and I like to use this cutting board because I find it gives me the perfect size for shaping out my cinnamon buns. So I'm actually going to give the bottom of this just a little wipe a bit of butter, not too much. This will just help to make sure that they don't stick to the bottom too bad. And this batch of dough is actually going to be more than enough. I'm going to actually work with this in 2 pieces. Just a little flour on the top. So this cutting board here is actually, 30 centimeters by 45, or for you old Imperial people, 12 inches by 18 inches. And I find it to be a really good size for doing cinnamon rolls. Now if you find it sticking, as I was, throw a little more flour down. Alright, so now we got that all rolled out. Okay, so we got our dough all rolled out here. I'm just going to take a bit of butter. This little spread, and again, if you don't have a brush like this, and just use whatever you got handy, a knife or rubber spatula. About half our brown sugar and cinnamon. Just get that nice spread around. Now, what you want to do is you don't want to go one side. You can bring it right to the very edge. But the side that's furthest away from you, you don't want to go right to the edge with the cinnamon and brown sugar, because you need to make sure it's going to crimp closed at the end. And if you don't leave some, basically what will happen is that the cinnamon and the brown sugar will not allow the dough to stick together. So we get those nice layers in the center. So what we need to make sure is that we leave the end so we can seal it up closed. So then what I'm doing here, you'll notice, as I'm rolling, I'm actually stretching a little bit as well. And this way it's going to have something that's going to stay nice and tight. Now I'm rolling along this direction along the long edge for these first ones. And these are going to give me a bunch of mini. I'm going to do these in 2 different sizes. So one of the nice things about working with the dough is that it is relatively pliable and elastic. So once I've got it all rolled, what I like to do is take it and just play with it for a few minutes. So if it's a little too thick in some spots, I'll squeeze it down. If it's a little too thin in other spots, I'll push it closed. So it's all relatively the same size, right across the full length. And so what I want to do is I want to get 12 small, mini little ones here. So in order to do that, I find the easiest way to do this, we're going to go right to the center. I'll cut that in 2 pieces, and that's pretty close. So what I like to do, again, we're going to mark our center. That would give us 4 pieces. Now before I go cutting this time, because I want to make sure they're all sort of around the same size, I'll actually just mark with my knife, and I can see, yeah, you know what, those are all going to be around the same size. So now that I have marks there, I can go ahead and cut my pieces down, knowing that I've got a bunch of pieces that are around the same size. I'm going to go ahead and do this all over again for the second piece. Just like our first one, we'll give this a nice coat with our butter here. And yes, this is real butter. I don't use margarine at all. I'm not a fan of margarine. I tend to use only real butter. As I mentioned, I'm going to cut these into a large cinnamon roll. So I'm going to actually rotate my board this time. Put the rest of our sugar down. So instead of, I still need to leave that far edge away from me with no sugar and cinnamon mixture. This time the far edge is going to be the short edge. So just like before though, I'm going to pull tight as I'm rolling, and that's how we get those nice sort of well-formed pieces. And again, just like the first one, we'll take that few moments and properly shape it out. And again, we mark our center. Now in this case, we're just doing this in 6s. Again, mark our lines. What I tend to do is I tend to flatten them down a little bit when I put them in the pan. So we'll go ahead and we'll cover these with plastic wrap here now. So we're just going to leave these here on the counter until they've risen, and again so that they've about doubled in size, and we'll come back when that's ready to go into the oven. Alright, so we can see these are all nice and ready to go here now. They've risen quite nicely. I've already turned my oven on. We've got it set to 350 degrees. So I'm just going to go ahead and pop these right on in. So they should take about 10 to 12 minutes. What I'm going to do is I'm going to set a 10-minute timer. And I might even end up checking it before that. But it's always much easier to let it go a little longer than just try and back it up. So while we're waiting, why don't we go ahead and get our frosting made. One of the things I love about a good cinnamon bun like that is a nice cream cheese frosting. We got some butter here. I'm just going to soften this up really quickly. Now you do want to take care and not soften the butter too much, because we do want to be able to cream this butter and have some air incorporated into it. So if it's too soft, it's just not going to hold the air that we're looking for. And that's what's going to give us that nice, light, fluffy cream cheese topping. So you'll notice the butter has gotten much lighter in color. As we've creamed it out, we've added some air in there and we've increased the volume. So now I'm going to go ahead and add my cream cheese in here. And we're going to cream this out a little bit more. I'm just going to get this a little scrape down. So now that that's all nice and creamed together, we'll go ahead and we'll add our icing sugar in. A little bit of vanilla extract. Just going to get that one more last scrape down. And there we go. There's our cream cheese frosting. So we'll just put that to the side. Well, just a couple more minutes until our cinnamon buns come out of the oven. Alright, so timer's just about ready to go off, so I'm going to go ahead and have a quick look here again. They're smelling done at this point. Oh yeah. Look at those bad boys. Go ahead and turn the oven off. Oh, these smell fantastic. You can see how nice and big and fluffy they are. So while they're still nice and hot, we want to get this cream cheese icing onto them. What I find, I put a little dollop right on top. That starts softening up that icing a little bit, and then I can go back and spread it around afterwards. Alright, so let's get this all smoosh around. Oh, these are going to be so tasty. So there we go. These are going to be so good. So you know what this means. We're going to go ahead, I'm going to pop one of these on the plate. We'll head on over to the counter over there. We'll give one of these a little taste. Oh, I can't wait. Doesn't that just look wonderful? Oh, I love cinnamon buns. So we gotta get this little taste there. As good as always. So good. So you can see this, super easy to make, and it's never going to get as good as this anywhere you go. There's something about making this stuff for yourself. It just tastes so much better. So I really hope you're going to give this recipe a shot. I'll tell you what, this dough makes a great donut as well. And in a couple weeks time, I'll probably redo this. I'll revisit it, and I'll show you guys how to make donuts with a nice chocolate glaze. So as always, if you haven't done so yet, please hit that like, please hit that subscribe button. You'll be able to do it right at the end. You'll see the little subscribe logo pops up. Hit that. Go ahead and leave me some feedback. Share this around on your different socials. Check out my Facebook page. Check out my website, bigredscooking.ca. Let me know if there's anything you want to see a video on. And I can't wait to keep doing these videos for you guys. Bye for now.